On paper, the tank looks terrifying. A 125mm gun, composite armor, modern fire control systems, digital displays, and a price tag that undercuts Western rivals by millions of dollars. On a spreadsheet, this tank doesn't just compete, it wins. But armies do not fight wars on spreadsheets. They fight in mud that clogs sensors, in heat that kills electronics, in rain, dust, poor logistics, tired crews, and broken supply chains. And that is where the story begins to change, because across different regions, a quiet pattern has emerged. Chinese tanks often look powerful in brochures, impressive in specifications, efficient in cost. Yet in real armies, their reputation becomes complicated. Not because they are useless, not because Chinese engineers are incompetent, but because modern warfare punishes one very specific mistake: confusing theoretical performance with operational reality. Today, we are not here to mock Chinese weapons. We are here to ask a harder question. Why do some tanks dominate specifications, dominate rankings, dominate marketing materials, yet quietly disappoint the soldiers expected to fight in them? And more importantly, what does that tell us, not just about Chinese tanks, but about how military power is misunderstood in the 21st century? This is Minh Quan Story International, news told differently. To understand this paradox, we need to step back. China did not enter the tank business yesterday. Modern Chinese main battle tanks are the result of decades of evolution, from Soviet-inspired designs of the Cold War to increasingly indigenous platforms like the Type 96, the Type 99, and later, export-oriented variants such as the VT series. As China's industrial base expanded, so did its ambition. Beijing was no longer satisfied with equipping only the People's Liberation Army. It wanted a place in the global arms market. And it succeeded. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, or SIPRI, China ranked among the world's top 4 arms exporters in the late 2010s. Its customers range from South Asia to Africa, from the Middle East to Southeast Asia. For many countries, Chinese tanks offer an attractive proposition. They are cheaper than Western equivalents, they are delivered faster, and they come with fewer political conditions attached. On paper, this looks like a rational choice. But tanks are not consumer products. They're not smartphones that can be replaced every few years. A main battle tank is a 30-year commitment to training, maintenance, logistics, doctrine, and trust. And this is where the central question emerges. If Chinese tanks are powerful, affordable, and modern by specification, why do so many armies treat them cautiously, upgrade them hesitantly, or quietly look for alternatives later on? The answer lies not in what these tanks promise, but in how real militaries actually fight wars. The first illusion begins with specifications. Chinese tanks often look formidable on paper. Large caliber guns, modern fire control systems, digital battle management, reactive armor, all the right keywords are there. Defense News noted in 2020 that Chinese export tanks are deliberately designed to appear competitive with Western and Russian platforms in headline metrics: caliber, horsepower, top speed, numbers that photograph well and sell easily. But war does not reward headline metrics. According to the Rand Corporation's 2022 assessment of armored warfare, the real measure of a tank is not peak performance, but sustained performance, what the vehicle can still do after weeks of continuous operations. And this is where the gap appears. Jane's Defense Weekly observed in 2021 that Chinese export variants are often simplified compared to those used by the PLA. Armor composition is less transparent. Sensor quality varies by customer. Some subsystems are optimized for cost, not endurance. The result is a tank that performs well in trials, demonstrations, and controlled exercises, but becomes less predictable as conditions deteriorate. In other words, Chinese tanks often win the evaluation phase, but struggle in the long, boring, unforgiving phase of military life, daily operation. The second problem is not firepower, it is reliability. Modern tanks are complex machines. They're networks of hydraulics, electronics, optics, software, and metallurgy. According to Reuters' 2022 reporting on Southeast Asian defense procurement, several operators quietly raised concerns about maintenance complexity and spare part delays associated with Chinese armored vehicles. In tropical climates, heat and humidity are relentless enemies. Electronics degrade faster, seals fail sooner, calibration drifts. Defense News reported in 2021 that many Chinese armored platforms rely heavily on proprietary subsystems. When something breaks, local forces often cannot improvise repairs. They must wait for parts, for technicians, for approvals. Contrast this with older Soviet-era tanks. RAND's 2019 study highlighted why these vehicles earned long-term trust. They tolerated abuse, poor maintenance, and rough handling. They were not elegant, but they were forgiving. A tank that requires perfect conditions is not a weapon. It is a laboratory experiment. The third issue is deeper: doctrine. Tanks do not fight alone. They are nodes inside a system. RAND's 2020 research on PLA doctrine shows that Chinese armored units are designed to operate inside a highly centralized, digitally integrated command structure. Sensors, drones, artillery, and headquarters are tightly connected. Inside that system, Chinese tanks make sense. Outside of it, problems emerge. According to CSIS in 2022, many importers of Chinese tanks lack the battlefield networks, training depth, and combined arms integration required to unlock their full potential. The Diplomat noted in 2021 that Chinese weapons tend to perform best inside Chinese doctrine, not when transplanted into different military cultures. A tank built for one institutional ecosystem does not automatically thrive in another. Without the system, the platform is incomplete. Finally, there is trust. Military institutions are conservative by nature. They prefer known weaknesses to unknown promises. According to the Military Balance published by the IAASS in 2023, Chinese main battle tanks have very limited independently verified combat experience. This is not an accusation, it is a fact. By contrast, Western and Russian tanks have decades of documented battlefield use, including failures, adaptations, and lessons learned. As the BBC noted in 2022, even flawed systems gain credibility through exposure to real war. Silence in this context is not neutrality, it is uncertainty. And uncertainty is poison to military planning. At this point, it is tempting to frame this story as a failure of Chinese engineering, a failure of quality, a failure of ambition. But that would be the wrong conclusion. Chinese tanks are not the product of incompetence, they are the product of a very specific strategic logic. China designs armored vehicles primarily for a centralized, tightly controlled military system, one where logistics, command, training, and doctrine are synchronized from the top down. Inside that environment, these tanks are efficient, modern, and effective. The problem begins when they are exported. Outside of China, most armies do not fight wars the Chinese way. They operate with mixed equipment, uneven infrastructure, limited budgets, and decentralized decision-making. In those conditions, resilience matters more than optimization. Forgiveness matters more than perfection, and this is where many Chinese tanks feel uncomfortable. They are optimized for demonstration, evaluation, and short-term performance, not always for decades of imperfect use. This is not unique to China. It is a recurring mistake in military history. Weapons designed to look impressive to planners often disappoint the people who must live with them. The difference today is that the gap between appearance and reality is wider, because modern warfare is harsher, faster, and less forgiving than ever. And this is where the story stops being about Chinese tanks, because the same illusion appears again and again in modern warfare. We rank weapons by firepower, we compare armor thickness, we argue over engines, sensors, and calibers. But wars are not won by the most impressive machines. They are won by systems that survive friction. According to SIPRI's 2023 assessment of global military trends, The most effective forces today are not those with the most advanced platforms, but those with the highest institutional resilience, the ability to adapt, repair, train, and fight continuously under pressure. A tank that breaks down is not neutral. It consumes time, manpower, spare parts, and attention. A tank that cannot be trusted reshapes doctrine around its weaknesses. Crews avoid risks, commanders limit missions, ambition quietly shrinks. This is how power on paper becomes weakness in practice. Chinese tanks look strong because they reflect a world that values control, optimization, and presentation. Real armies live in a different world, one defined by chaos, compromise, and human limits. The lesson is uncomfortable, but clear. Military strength is not a product you buy. It is a system you build, slowly, painfully, and often imperfectly, and no specification sheet can replace that. So the next time you see a tank ranking, a specification table, or a headline declaring that one platform has overtaken another, pause for a moment. Ask a different question, not how powerful it looks, but how well it survives reality. Because in modern warfare, the most dangerous illusion is believing that numbers alone tell the whole story. If you value context over hype, systems over slogans, and analysis over easy answers, consider subscribing to the channel. Share this video with someone who still believes that military power can be measured on a spreadsheet. This is Minh Quan Story International, news told differently.